At St. Cloud State University, athletics are more than just games. They're an essential part of the Husky experience. From D1 hockey games to championship-winning wrestling, volleyball, and more, there's Husky pride in every corner of campus. Whether you're on the field, in the stands, or cheering from the student section, you're a part of something big. And the best part? SDSU is close to home, affordable, and packed with community that's got your back, in class and on the court. Come see what it means to be a Husky. Schedule your campus tour today at St. Cloud State University, the home of the Huskies.
What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life, or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello!
Ah! I'm back, baby! I'm back!
Let's do it. Let's reinvent. Let's bring back, we're running it back, the Mike Daly Show. Remember the 1990s, Kello TV, Gary Weckworth? This guy brought South Dakota State football to the forefront, and we're doing the Mike Daly Show again today here on Happy Hour.
Thanks for having me. That was fun. I got to be a part of your industry for a little while.
Yeah.
And, we worked hard at it. At that point in time, every coach had a show, and named at different things, but most often it was called the coach's name because you're trying to create a brand.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest battle I had up at South Dakota State, is them allowing me to call it that. Joe Salem show, Rocky Hager's show, but not, they wanted to be the Jackrabbit sports show. And that didn't work in at that time.
Why didn't it work? And did they think you were being self-absorbed?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And plus,
why did you
insist? I just kept going, and I did everything then. I was the producer, the creator. Gary obviously did all the tough stuff.
Yeah.
But I sold the advertising. I bought the TV time with Kello and Midwest Sports back then. And but it ends up being something that really helped us kind of set the tone for what came after
no
I
kidding.
left. It differentiated. It put us in the same frame as North Dakota State, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska as far.
Yeah.
I remember that show was in between the Notre Dame show, Lou Holtz, and what was the other one? It was another big time.
But this was on a regional network
on Midwest Sports Channel.
That was seen across the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin.
All over. It was a great station back then.
It exposed some people to South Dakota State football.
Yeah. So anyway, that was fun. If anyone runs into me and says, God, I kind of know you, it almost always ends up being from that TV show. Now they'll end up saying, "Now was that a gardening show, a fishing show, or what?" I remember
you sat in a studio. Well, you showed a few football highlights. I think people would remember it was a football show.
Yeah, no.
Mike Daly, look, the old school Jackrabbit fans know he was the guy before John Stiegelmeier. He really lit the match that got South Dakota State football going to what we know it as today, is such a powerhouse, such a rite of passage in the autumn in South Dakota. Jackrabbit football won 64% of his games as head coach from 91 to 96 with Stig as your defensive coordinator. 26-year coaching career. This man started as a GA at Minnesota for the Golfers, but he was at Augustana for a couple of years. South Dakota State as an assistant in the late 1970s, where you first met John Stiegelmeier. We're going to get to that story. But you rode the train with Don Morton at North Dakota State when they were an elite Division II powerhouse. and you rode that train with him to Tulsa, where not only some of Tulsa's best football years, but also an epic story about Richard Nixon in Miami.
You blew it now.
Most people have already heard or read that, but we're going to hear it from Mike's own mouth today. And then 3 years, a chance to coach in the Big Ten. It went how it went, but it led here to South Dakota State. So we've been catching up a little bit here at Gateway Lounge. I just met you. I met you at the Dan Jackson press conference.
Remember that? Yep.
This tells you a lot about Mike Daly. He introduced himself as Mike Daly to me. I know who you are. I met you while you were talking with Stig, and so it's been a year and a half in the making, a chance to have this conversation with you here at Gateway Lounge. So thanks for taking the time to do that.
Appreciate it. Fun to talk sports and Jackrabbit sports.
Yeah.
And reminisce a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we'll talk hopefully mostly now.
Well,
because of all the great things
that's what I want to do.
We're going on.
We're going to tell plenty of stories, and I just up front before I forget, I really appreciate Tanner Castora's work in the Stig book, the Stig and the Rise of South Dakota State Football, because there's some good stories and information on Mike Daly in that book, who of course was an instrumental part in Stig's career and vice versa. But let's do that off the bat. How are you spending your days? You told me that you're not, you're retired. You have time. You're able to wait an hour for us to get here today because of
somehow
miscommunication. Yeah. I got in at 1 a.m. after a weekend in San Francisco, and AC was broken, and then my phone. Apparently, you didn't get my text messages, but you were so patient. And but you've got the time to just kind of wait around for people these days, so I really appreciate that.
You bet.
But you can't golf anymore, so how do you spend your days?
Well, I sleep in. I take a good nap from 12 to 1.
Yeah.
My wife and I enjoy happy hour, about 5, popcorn.
Every day?
Killian beer, most of the time.
Why didn't you get a beer?
I admit it.
Why didn't you get a beer today? Because you have to wait till happy hour?
Yeah, I got it. It's a little early here.
What's your happy hour drink of choice? What do you
Killian
usually?
beer.
Killian's?
Yeah.
Irish Red.
And buttered popcorn.
Okay.
Now and then some salted peanuts, but
is this at home or? Okay,
yeah,
usually at home.
Yeah.
Okay,
we just
have
fun with that.
And
I fish. I love to fish out in Chamberlain. Fish out at Cedar Shore out there, and I've always had, I shouldn't say always, but a lot of times had good luck. I spent a lot of time with friends. I mentioned to you before the gathering of football and athletic minds that we have in town every Wednesday at 4:30. Old coaches and stuff. We look forward to that supper and
this is
travel a lot and do a lot of projects. I like to build things. I built my whole bottom floor when we moved into our house. I've built our whole deck. I built a little playhouse for my first grandson. So it's just stuff like that. And then I do have hobbies of collecting cards, coins.
Really?
Yeah, I love to collect, and my wife hates it. So it's a little tough on our marriage, but
you get through it.
We get through it.
Yeah. Do you guys have a happy balance of? You have plenty of time together, but also you have your own lives. So I've heard that's one of the keys to a happy, long marriage.
You bet. And she does. She's got more friends. She's a great lady, and she makes friends easy and cares about people. And, I mean, she's got 5, 6 pods, I call them, of girlfriends. And which turns into, being able to go out quite a few times a week if she wants. And she enjoys that and supports people. And so, I'm pretty good at retirement.
I've told, who was it, Jim Heinitz last year? I know you know, everybody knows Jim. Who was it that we just had? Cordell might be able to remember this. We had somebody who, Mike Begeman. I'm sure you know Mike.
Sure. I worked for him.
That's right, at Sanford. We're going to get into that as well. But, Mike's been retired for about 4 years, and I just tell all you guys, you're living the dream. And Mike's like, well, aren't you a little young to retire? And I'm like, yes, I am, but I want to be retired. Like, I want to accomplish things. It's important, but, you guys have the best life. If you're able to be like you, find places to travel, find groups of friends, find ways to fill up your day, but still it's a pretty relaxed schedule.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't handle the retirement thing as well as
I've heard
others.
about this. Some people die right away.
Yeah, and then some of them go back to work. I've got a real close friend, Doc, in town, who he didn't go into the office for about 2 months, and then he started doing.
Because he got bored. He couldn't.
He
workaholic.
just loved it so much. And,
well, that's good too.
And he liked taking care of people, and he just liked to keep busy, and so he works 2-3 days a week, and of course makes more than I did ever in coaching, and so you just kind of find different ways.
But you don't have any itch to go back to work ever again.
I will never work again. That's a guarantee. There are not many guarantees in life.
How long has it been since you've been done working?
I think I retired in 2018.
Okay, how old were you?
19.
If you mind me asking.
Yeah, I was 60. I'm 76 right now.
Okay.
Feel like I'm about 92.
Oh, stop. Okay, but that's a good 68. That's a good run. And where do you like to travel to? Because that's what I would do if I had all the time and money were not a concern. I would travel as much and see as many new places as I can.
Well, one thing related to what we're talking about sports is was 2 years ago. My wife and I and Derek and his wife flew to London with the Jaguars.
Okay.
And they played 2 games there that year. That was 2 years ago. And so whenever we did that, we spent a lot of time with the team, and because the Jaguars general manager was the guy on my coaching staff at South Dakota State, Trent Balke.
That's right.
And we had been going to his games, whether he was GM in early 2010s when they went to the Super Bowl. He took us to the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of thing, we did that, a lot of that. He's out of it right now, but then regionally we travel a lot. This year we went to Cancun. We were to the Bahamas this year, so we've been rolling pretty good.
I know that the first thing you did after you were done with college, before you had the rest of your life to work professionally, you backpacked around Europe. So I know you're a traveling man, which, by the way, I regret not doing. I still want to do that someday. But I had told you last week when we were setting this interview up that I was going to San Francisco for the weekend, and your one remark to me was, "Can't beat Alcatraz." And I'm like, I don't know you that well, so I'm thinking either Mike's never been to San Francisco and he thinks that's all that's there because it's what it's famous for, and no, I've been there several times. The last thing I want to do is spend a day at an old jail. I've done the ferry cruise around it, right by Alcatraz. There it is, wave to Alcatraz. But I figured Mike Daly's probably a learned man of the world. He's probably been to San Francisco a few times and understands there's about a zillion things that are wonderful.
My sister,
about
who's
San
a
Francisco.
Pediatrician, has lived out there for 40 years.
There you go.
In Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
And when Trent was with the 49ers, we were out there a lot. So
Okay.
we had been there quite a bit and love it. But I do like Alcatraz. I think they're pretty cool.
One of these days.
I
just figure there's so many other things.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there and stay long, though.
It might give you the heebie-jeebies
a little rough.
Well, let's dial this all the way back. You grew up in Fairmont, Minnesota, which is about, 2 hours from here? Just right on I-90?
About 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I played football just like everybody in small towns. You play all the sports. And I was not recruited by anyone. And I wanted to play football someplace. Again, I got a letter once from Luther and from Gus Davis, and so really it was those. And then my high school coach got in touch with a guy by the name of Jim Malmquist at Augustana. He said, "Hey, I got a guy here. You should let him walk on. He's a pretty good player and might do good." And so they invited me to camp, and I tell this story all the time. I'm in line when I get there to get jocks and T-shirts and all that, and everybody's walking away with a big load of stuff, and I get up and he says, "What's your name?" It was Larry Borgum. Remember Larry Borgum?
I do.
He's a legend at Augie.
Yeah.
And, and I said, "Mike Daly." He said, "Oh, you're a walk-on. We don't give walk-ons underwear and T-shirts. You have to go get your own." And literally, John, I had to go to Lewisstrug. I had to walk over to Lewisstrug, which is at that time was about 6 blocks away on Minnesota. And as I was walking, I just wondered if I had made the right decision.
Yeah.
And then
I would think
and then
so.
from there it went well.
You persisted,
Yeah.
and it went okay. What kind of a career did you have?
Well,
Don't be shy.
It gets better the older I
Of
am,
course,
you
of
know,
course.
but
But what was Augustana football like in those days? Because I know you were just a few years removed from the Bob Burns era, which is kind of like the golden era of Augie football in those
First of all,
early
when
60s.
when we were there was no 1AA
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
And so we were, if you didn't go to Minnesota, if you were from Fairmont, Minnesota, for example, you hoped you could go to Augustana, South Dakota State, or North Dakota, because that was the next best thing.
Yeah.
And it was 1AA football.
Yeah.
It was, and not to at all diminish the level of football being played right now by those schools, because they're doing a heck of a job. But it was really good football.
Yeah.
And so it was competitive. I was able to start right away. That back then, you only got 3 years. So, and I was able to start there. We had we won our 3 games a year, 4 games a year. Had some good wins. I know we beat I remember beating South Dakota State when Jim Langer was playing up there, and that was the first association I had with South Dakota State. Was 1968 or 69, whenever the away game was of being on that field.
Yeah.
And
Jim Langer, center that went on to play for the Miami Dolphins.
I'm sorry, not
won a couple
everybody
Super
knows
Bowls.
that.
That's okay.
He's South Dakota State's other Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool to
Yeah.
have 2 of them, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to that. So yeah, had fun, lifelong friends. Still, it's kind of crazy, but we had a house. It was a house like an animal house, and there's 5
This was
of us.
the late 60s,
yeah,
right?
this was late 60s, and 5 of us lived in it, and then a couple left, and then 2 more came in, and in that house we took our pictures, our fraternity pictures and all that. Well, the 5 guys that first went in moved away in the world and became very, very successful people. And then in about 1998, we were all back in Sioux Falls, living a mile apart.
Wow.
And that was pretty special. And so we... that was neat.
But it's interesting. I just asked you about football, and you just gravitated toward the other perks of college life.
Yeah.
Especially during that time.
Yeah.
Which my dad's about your age, and I'm jealous of what I hear about those times.
We had some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before the ages of cell phones, and every moment it feels like captured.
But one thing that came out of really those early years was the importance of coaches in a person's life. My dad died when I was a year old.
I was going to get to that.
And so it's just the way it worked out. Never had a father figure in my house longer. My mom remarried and was only married for like a year. And so I didn't have that father figure. And it
was just you and your mom most of the time?
And my sisters. I grew up in a family of women, and that's why I'm a little screwed up.
How many sisters?
I got three sisters.
Okay, so you and 4 women.
Yeah,
most of your life.
Yeah.
Were you the youngest?
Yeah. No, I was second.
Okay.
But my high school, my coaches throughout became my mentors, my father, they took care of me. They made sure I was included and stuff. And then my high school coach, who I was probably had a relationship like John and I had, he always figured out a way to help me out. And he got me into Augustana with a walk-on, and then he got me the GA job at Minnesota.
That was your first gig right out of college, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this was Tom Mahoney, was his name?
Tom Mahoney, one of the great ones all time. One time he had the longest winning streak in the history of Minnesota, and he at one time was, I think, second for wins. And so, that really, I learned a lot from him over the years. He'd come to game. He'd just show up at a game when I was coaching, sometime whether it was Wisconsin or North Dakota State or wherever. And, I would know he's coming because he always called and asked for free tickets. He wouldn't spend a penny. But.
Yeah, he helps you get the job. You get some free tickets to the games.
Yeah, and just last thing, that game I mentioned up at South Dakota State, when our first association with South Dakota State, he was the umpire.
Oh.
And I was a safety.
Okay.
And I had about 20 tackles on a guy by the name of Darwin Gonerman, who was unbelievable. He ran about 6 inches off the ground. And finally, Coach said, Mike, he said, you got to change your technique. You got to just jump on him or you're going to lose your mind. and I mean, it just, it was fun. So anyway, so then he was officiating our games.
Wow, that's crazy. You mentioned your father, who you lost at age 1. I mean, this was a decorated World War II veteran. He was part of D-Day. He was there on the day that helped disarm things to allow the Americans to invade and disrupt, and obviously led to the freedoms we enjoy now. But he died of polio when you were 1 year old. 1 year old. How did you ever process that? I know you at some point you were able to read a lot of letters that he wrote, and how did you process in general?
That's a great question, because what I was fortunate, excuse me, his sisters and brothers kept all the letters that he wrote during the war, and so they gave it. Once I was old enough to appreciate it, they started giving me those letters.
Okay.
And one of the first things I read them, but you ask about retirement, the first thing I did in retirement is cataloged all of those letters.
Wow.
By year, read every one of them. Gives me goosebumps in what he said, like, the June 8th, 1944, the comments he made about making it through it. And I've got all his uniform that he wore. I've got pictures of where he slept in the Battle of the Bulge in Tunisia when they did that deal. And then where else? D-Day.
Wow.
So
he was D-Day and Battle of the Bulge.
He was in the whole European theater deal. He went in with Patton across Africa. Then he went to Sicily and did the invasion of Sicily. Then he went to England, prepared for D-Day, went into the beach about 2 hours before the main force, and he was a combat engineer, and he blew up mines, and then went forward and ended up building a road from the beach to the hills, and then made a road up to the top, and then the troops came in behind, and his platoon basically was all lost. I think there's 2 of his group of 20 that he went in with on those U-boats or whatever, and he didn't have a scratch.
Oh my goodness!
But yeah, his group won a presidential citation, which is the biggest thing you can win as a unit for their actions. Then he ended up in the Battle of the Bulge, and he had a fight hand-to-hand in that. Turned into an infantry guy, and then went into Germany, and then went into Czechoslovakia. but I've got a lot of artifacts from it, and it's and so like this 250-year anniversary, I've just been glued, and every Veterans Day, every Memorial Day, every anniversary of D-Day, it brings it all back as to what he accomplished in that generation, not just him, that generation of people. People don't, I'm not going to get on my wagon, people don't understand how lucky we are to just be sitting at Gateway right now.
Yeah, yes.
Having a good conversation.
And I would be lying if I said I wasn't one of those people. I grew up, 80s and 90s, so we were a little closer to that period of time, and all the veterans were alive, and so you'd see things on TV. Obviously, there's movies out there, books. I didn't read too many of the books, but Stu Whitney just wrote a book about Bob Burns. And have you had a chance to read it?
I haven't read it yet. Well, I have to read it.
Let me tell you. I mean, probably Matt Zimmer wrote this in his review at Sioux Falls Live, and I would agree with Matt that probably the football. He led an amazing football career, obviously, as a player and then as a coach around here. But the details, without being too gory or sensational about him and his unit. D-Day and Battle of the Bulge were something else about what they went through and how remarkably close we were to going in another direction. As you said, to 80 years later, we might not be here at the Gateway Lounge, just enjoying this conversation.
Whenever these big days come and they have movies and documentaries, I catch myself trying to see them.
Yeah.
Trying to see them in the group that they're photographing, and I don't think I ever have. I would have loved to have him live for a lot of reasons, but one thing is to hear those stories straight from. And I guess he did talk about it. My aunts and uncle said he was one of those guys that could talk about it, although he did suffer from. What do they call it? Post-traumatic, whatever they called it. Warners. Yeah. They called it Warners back there. And part of the fact that he got polio, a lot of people felt, was because his whole system had been weakened by everything that he went through.
Obviously, you were a good athlete, and football's a tough guy sport. So was there anything about not having the opportunity to have a father in the house that drove you? Or is it something did you not think about that at the time? Or?
My mom was amazing. I mean, he died in Sioux Falls. We moved from Fairmont and lived here 3 months, my sister and I, and then he and my mom died 3 months later. She's 24 years old. She doesn't have a job, doesn't have much money, living in a town that doesn't know anyone, and for 6 months raised us across the street from Joe Salem's house, just down the block from John Salem.
Oh my goodness!
On Summit, as crazy as that is. But then moved back, and she was a strong lady, ahead of her time, and honestly, she directed my early life, and then, as I mentioned, junior football coaches and baseball coaches, they took over, and Harry Pritz and Gary Wolschlager, and I can remember those people that helped me.
So you get, we'll zoom it back to you've played at Augustana. You said you go backpacking in Europe. Which, I mean, we could spend a whole hour on that in, 1971. What a time. Did you honestly, during that time, not know what you were going to do with your life?
No. You asked about traveling a little bit ago, and we were talking before, and I had gone with an Augie group to Africa, the Ecology of East Africa trip about my junior year, and really got the itch for foreign countries. And so a buddy of mine and I said, when we graduate, we're going to do the backpack deal. And we did. We were over there for 6 weeks or so. and went all over the place.
Yeah,
and
what'd you
just
cover?
had a ball.
Give us the stops.
Oh, geez.
Just in general.
Amsterdam, then London, then Paris, then Rome, then Athens, then, all of them.
Well, you sure did it.
Austria.
And this was back when you couldn't get on the internet and just Google things and figure out how did you figure out what you were going to do and where you were going to go?
Frommer's Europe on $5 a day.
Okay.
There was a book called that.
Yeah.
And it had the phrases to use when you were trying to communicate with people. We found out Parisians were jerks. They didn't like us.
Okay.
And so we left there after about a half a day, but then later came back and had a great time.
Okay.
But we hit every major country while we were there. But the negative, it had to end. And I came home and had nothing to do. I had a degree. I had two teaching areas, science and PE, and I didn't have a job, and that's when my high school football coach helped me.
Did you call him or did he call you? How did that happen?
I stopped over his house I always did, and that's when he set me up at Minnesota.
Okay.
With Cal Stahl.
Wow. So he had a direct line to the head coach at Minnesota.
Well, he was teammates with them at University of Minnesota back in the 40s.
Okay, when they were a powerful football program.
He played for Bertie Bierman, and they were national powers.
What was that 1 year like? What was it? Was it the fall of '71, Minnesota?
Fall of '71, fall of '72, because I stayed one more year at Augie before I went to Europe.
Okay.
And I was a student coach. That was my first deal.
All right.
And then came back. But the experience up there was my worst year of my life, very honestly. It was tough, coming from a small school, going there. If I had a chance to coach defensive backs, it would have been no problem. They moved me and coached tight end. I didn't know anything about it. Cal Stahl did something to begin with that I learned a lot about. It's kind of I'll talk as fast as I can here, but it was amazing. After the first practice, I saw Stahl walking around, and I was with my position group tight ends. He was walking around, and he'd go to each group, and then he would lift something, and he'd talk into it. And I just noticed it. And he got to me, and I was going through my drills, and he talks into it. And so we get done with practice. The first thing we did in the locker room was go in and sit at a big table. He walks in, puts the tape recorder in the middle of the tape, and turns it on, and blasts comments on each person's situation.
Wow.
Got to me, he said, whoever is his coach, you better get with him. He doesn't know anything. He just ripped me. And so that was how it started.
Wow.
But I had some other coaches. Butch Nash, he's a legend up there. He took care of me. A guy by the name of Dick Mosley. Herb Brooks.
Wow.
He roomed, or he had his office right next to our GA area, and he was young, and he'd see us walking in with our tail between our legs, and he'd take us to McNamara's for beer. So.
Oh, he would?
Yeah.
He would do Macnamara's. Okay.
McNamara's.
Dinky Town's the place.
Yeah.
So Herb Brooks would console the young coaches who were getting lit up by Cal Stahl.
Yeah, football. Yeah, football coaches.
So was he a cool guy at the time?
Oh, he's a dude.
Yeah.
Tremendous guy. It just was fun. He treated everybody great. I ran into him at a Stampede game once.
Herb Brooks?
Which was fun. Yeah, he was scouting for one of the pro
whoever
hockey
he was working
teams.
for at the time. He had kind of a vagabond career after that whole Miracle on Ice thing. But yeah, so you mentioned Cal Stahl that once. That was Cal Stahl's first year. I just looked this up. 4-7 that year at Minnesota, and then you. So it wasn't a great experience, but you come back to Augie to coach the secondary, and then to SDSU for 3 years after that.
Yeah, I came back to Augie. I worked half days as a teacher at Patrick Henry, and then half days at Augustana with the football deal. Did that for 2 years. Ralph Strenko was the head coach, and he treated me well. He was a good guy. And then a secondary job opened up at South Dakota State. under John Gregory.
Yep.
And I went up, and just after I got there, the defensive coordinator moved on, and he for some reason made me defensive coordinator.
You're probably, what, 25, 26 years old?
25 or 26. Yeah, I was so young that we laugh about it every time I see these guys, but we had to have a rule in Brookings.
By the way, this is 1975 to 78. Just keep track of the timeline here.
So we had to have a rule with the bar scene, since I was single and most of the players were, that whoever was in the bar got the bar if the other came in. So if I'd walk into Hort's and there was a player in there, I had to go someplace else. And reverse. If I was someplace and they came in, they went, and that's how we came. We coexisted at age 26 with guys that were 21, 22 years old.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've heard old stories about Bob Devaney, the coach at Nebraska, when he was in his 50s, and the head coach, same thing. Players would walk in, he would walk out, and vice versa in the 1960s and 70s. But during your time there, John Gregory had hired a guy who was still in college there, who did not play college football, named John Stiegelmeier, and I think the intimate details, but John was it sounded like just a curious whippersnapper, and he decided he wanted to coach, and so he gets kind of hired as a volunteer student coach, and John gave him you to take him under your wing?
Yeah, one day John came in. He says, I got this guy in the theory of coaching class. He wants to be a coach. He says, I don't even know if he played in high school or not, but I like him. He said, would you take him under your wing?
Yeah.
And I said, I met him, and I said, sure. And so we moved a desk into our office.
Yeah.
And then for the next year and a half to whatever it was, he was there every day. For every second he wasn't in a class or in the library. He was
just
there.
You and him.
And and he became, he learned a lot then, and then, as we go on, as we talk, then we end up hiring him a couple other places along the way, but that was the start of our relationship. And the start of his coaching career was that student coach.
What do you remember about him? What do you remember about him?
Oh, he even after now, there's two guys that were the hardest workers that I ever coached with, and I coached with some good ones.
Yeah.
And John was one, and there's Trent Bulkey, who was the GM of the 49ers, that were the next one. They were 100% committed and spent more time than I expected of them. They were, and that, people don't know that. John has accomplished a lot, but he worked hard.
Yeah.
And he had his priorities right. If he did have some time off, he was with his family or involved in a church-related deal.
Yeah.
And that's how it started for him.
Right. And you, at some point in 1979, after your 4 years at SDSU as an assistant, Don Morton had been a guy who, how had you known him previously? He became the head coach at North Dakota State, and he took you with him as his DC, right?
Yeah.
You go from SDSU to NDSU.
Don was, when I was spending those 2 years at Augustana, he was the offensive line coach.
Okay.
Jim Wacker was the defensive coach. And Jim Wacker was the head coach at North Dakota State, hired Mort from Augie to go up. Wacker moved from there to Southwest Texas. Mort got the job. Then he hired me up there as defensive coordinator.
Yeah. So you went from SDSU defensive coordinator to NDSU.
Defensive coordinator.
That was quite that's an interesting move.
It was, but I knew him well.
Yeah.
His aside, Josh is Morton, the AD at Augie, is his son.
Right. Yes.
And he used to get me hot dogs before games. I didn't eat pregame, and then I'd send him up to I'd go sit at the top of Michigan Stadium, and then he'd go get me a hot dog and bring it up.
Well, by the way, because this is going to lead to Tulsa and Wisconsin with Don, because obviously, how many national titles? Did you guys win a couple national titles there?
We lost one
to
Wacker in 81, and then won 83.
Okay.
And then I actually left and went to Idaho State to replace another former South Dakota State guy by the name of Denny Moeller, who was the defensive coordinator there, under Dave Cragthorpe initially, who was former head coach at South Dakota State. They moved on, and then I got that job. I was there 8 months. And then Mort.
D.C.? Okay.
And then Mort got the job at Tulsa, and then he hired me as defensive coordinator there.
You know, I said earlier that you hopped on his train. Maybe he was just on your train. You were taking him for the ride. I don't know, because he keeps wanting you to be the defensive coordinator. And so that was, 1985, you go to Tulsa. This was a school that had been in Missouri, the old Missouri Valley Conference.
You did your research.
It disbanded. Well, I read the book. I did. Yep. I'm not going to lie. It was mostly the Stig book by Tanner Castora. And it disbanded. You became an independent, and you were there for 3 seasons, correct? Two. And in one of them, your second, Oklahoma State at the time was in the Big 8. They had Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders. They were a top 10 program for about that vintage. You guys beat them. It's still, I guess, considered one of the great victories in Tulsa history.
Yeah, we beat them at home. I think it was opening game. We had
Thurman
played them
Thomas
pretty well.
And Barry Sanders.
Yeah. We had recruited Barry Sanders.
Really?
We were the only staff.
Because he was from Wichita.
He was from Wichita. We were the only staff that offered him a scholarship until just before, back when there was a true signing date.
Yeah.
We had him in camp. We liked him. We were on him. We offered him a scholarship. He accepted it. And then the worst thing that in the old days, we would go to people's houses and physically sit with them, and they'd sign these letters of intent.
Yeah.
Well, your worst worry was that you were going to show up and another car was going to be there. And sure enough, with Barry Sanders, the recruiting coach, came in. He got there at 6:30 for an 8 o'clock start, and there was an Oklahoma State car in the park in the driveway. And he was sitting there, and it was, long story short, they both went in. They both talked. The dad wanted him to go to Oklahoma State. Barry wanted to go to Tulsa. Dad won, and
I thought his
that's
dad
the
wanted
rest
him to
of
go
the
to
story.
Oklahoma. That's the story I remember, that Barry Sanders' dad wanted him to go to. Barry Sanders' dad was a huge Oklahoma fan.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they recruited him very hard.
He
but anyway.
wanted to go. Yeah, they didn't. It was Oklahoma State is the one that just before signing.
And so you were the coach that was there?
No.
Okay.
Peck Clark was the guy that was there.
Okay.
I didn't physically recruit him. But
then you had to draw up a defense against him at Tulsa. And
Thurman Thomas.
Did you guys? Well, Thurman was probably the main guy at that point, wasn't
the guy.
he? Yeah.
Actually, the first year, Barry was definitely the second back.
Yeah.
He returned kickoffs and all that stuff. He had such a unique style; it was unbelievable. I remember we remember talking about him at camp. He ran like no one else ever did. And to some degree, that might be why people didn't recruit him, because they didn't know if that would carry over to pro football or college football. But he very quiet kid.
Yes.
That was fun, and we ended up having a heck of a year. We were ranked 20th at the end of the season, playing our last game against number 1, and
Miami.
that was Miami.
Yes,
and
this
that was in their golden years.
Yeah, this is 87, right? Or 86?
This is 86.
86, okay. And so
Testaverde's their quarterback, Alonzo Highsmith, their running back. I think Irwin was a wide receiver.
Michael Irwin was a wide receiver then.
Oh, they're just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, let's get to that.
Hartley Dykes.
I swear, I'm sure you saw the 30 for 30 on the U, right? Did you see the ESPN documentary? It's on. It feels like it's on all the time. It was here. It was on last week when we were here at the Gateway. It was on one of the ESPNU or whatever. And but to give people a perspective, you're the coach of an independent team in Tulsa, and you guys were pretty good those 2 years you were there. And you said you were 7-3 going into the Miami game. At the time, Miami had won a national title under Howard Schnellenberger in '83. Then Jimmy Johnson came in '84. They had not yet won a national title, but they were one of the top 5 teams in the country, and they were the number 1 team in the country that year. They would lose to Joe Paterno and Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl as a heavy favorite. But, I mean, they were a machine. They were the 800-pound gorilla, and you're going in there 35-point underdog. Oh. And, of course, so here's where we get to a story that is told in the book. That those of you who know Mike Daly know this story, but I don't care. We got to hear it on Happy Hour. Was this the night before the game? The night before the game, you're at a high-end restaurant in Miami.
Just paint the picture a little bit more. One of the guys that is in that group I told you about that meets every Wednesday night was assistant. It was a recruiting coordinator for Miami at that time. And worked.
This is in your group that meets in Sioux Falls every Wednesday? What was his name?
Corey Johnson was his name. Ended up AD at Colorado State and even other places. Yeah, he was one of those guys in that house that we were talking about. Anyway, he ended up being our host. And so when we landed and he they always have someone there as you get off the charter, and he already we'd talked during the week. He set up going out to eat. My wife came along, and another buddy who also lived in that house came along, and we after we practiced and then had pregame our Friday evening meal, we went and met him at a high-end restaurant. And so what happened is still, I just pinched myself, but we walk in, and this guy from Fairmont, Minnesota, had never seen a chandelier, and all there was it was just unbelievable. And the gal that was with Corey, the Miami person, a guy, very good-looking guy, walks up and says, "Hi, how you doing?" to the gal, and they were friends. That's how we got in. Anyway, so his name was Cy, and I said, "Boy, this is great. This is unbelievable." He said, "Wait till you see where you're going. You're not." So we go, and he takes us into this back room, and it had cubicles, all cubicles, so you really couldn't see anyone else. You could peek in, and I guess if you wanted to, but you just were. And so we slide in, and we're into the appetizer part, and we're eating, shrimp because we're down there. I remember plain as day, and Cy walks up and says, "Coach," he said, "there's a guy that's eating here tonight that loves football, and he heard there was some people associated with the Miami Tulsa game tomorrow night. He'd like to stop by and talk some football." And I kind of big time a little bit. I said, we're just kind of having some fun, and maybe when we're done, if he's still around, have him stop by. He says, "Okay." So 10 minutes later, a little shuffling going on, and around the booth comes Cy, and then B.B. Rebozo, who was the money guy in Watergate, and then Richard Nixon. And Nixon literally slides in the booth with us, and he spent 15 minutes with us talking football. He knew all about Tulsa, knew all about Miami. He knew about Tulsa 30 years ago.
He knew about Tulsa.
Yeah,
this is 10 years removed from being the president of the United States.
He named All-Americans from way back. Steve Large, Howard Twilley. Just different ones. And he told us a story when he erroneously, as it turned out, crowned Arkansas national champion over Texas, who also could win, because he was at the game. And he walked in the locker room and crowned him, and that was back when media guys picked it. And the media guys picked someone else, and he got all the stars. So anyway, long story short,
he's quite the football fan.
Yeah, he really was. And so we get down, he gets up, he says, "What's the point spread?" And I said, "Well, we're 35-point underdogs." He said, "Coach," he said, "I'm taking Tulsa in the points." And previous to that little exchange, I said, "Why don't you come up and sit in the booth, and I'll let you call a couple defenses." He said, God, that'd be fun. I'd love to do it, but I got to fly to New York. Well, long story short, we played them very well as anyone did in the country up to the national championship game, and flew back that night. And at 10 o'clock in the morning in Tulsa, in the coach's office, the sports information director comes in and says,
by the way, you had gotten a short night of sleep,
yeah,
right? 4 hours of sleep.
Basically.
You had to go into the office, and you're putting together tape before your defenders come in for a meeting?
Yeah, I'm grading the film.
Yeah,
and
so you're hard at work in the bunker.
Yeah, and the SID comes in and says, Coach, he said, there's a guy on the phone who wants to visit with you. And I said, players are coming here in about a half hour, and I've got to be done. Can I call him back? He says, no, you want to take this call. So
why can't people just tell you it's Richard Nixon?
So I get up, I walk down, pick it up. Coach, Richard Nixon. He said, great game last night. I won a ton of money on you. So then because it went through the sports information director, it got out nationally, and there was a blurb in the Tulsa paper, and so anyway, that's the Nixon story.
That was it. Was it a quick thing? Did he hang up? He just told you?
It
wasn't a conversation. It was just he told you that you won a bunch of money.
No, I mean, he said, good seeing you, that kind of deal. But no, we didn't. We didn't. But that, just the fact that he called is just remarkable.
You're thinking about a former president who you had seen the night before the game in Miami, and he had to get to New York. He's in New York, and who knows what else is going on in his life at that time. And he still made sure to call the Tulsa Sports Information Office to get a hold of you, Mike Daly, the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, it was wild.
Just to let you know that. Yeah. That is insane. It's all downhill from there, right?
Well, it's so unique and fun.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those one-time deals.
Now, you guys put together a couple nice seasons there in Tulsa, and you're 7-4 after the loss to Miami. But do you think that performance against Miami, how much did that help all of you get the job at Wisconsin, or was it already kind of there in the bag?
It sealed the deal.
Yeah.
A guy by the name of Otto Breitenbach, who was assistant AD to Crazy Legs Hirsch, who was the AD, was at the game. And basically when we got back the next day, called Morton and offered him the job.
Yeah.
We had really played him well.
Yeah.
So we were gone in 2 days.
2 days after the season was over?
Yeah, basically.
So you get the call from Nixon, and then after the call from Nixon, what was it, another day or two, and you had been offered the job at Wisconsin?
It wasn't more than 5 days. So.
Oh, and this was a no-brainer, right? So Don Morton just tells you guys, we're going to Wisconsin.
Well, the Texas job opened up too that year.
Okay.
Or was gonna.
Yeah.
And we had a shot. We were the hot name at that time. We'd had 2 good years. We played a really tough schedule, and Northwestern was also open, and they had talked to them. So there were things happening, but timing's everything, and tough to turn down a Big Ten job.
Yeah.
I did not have interest in the head job at Tulsa for a variety of reasons, and went with him to Tulsa.
Did Tulsa offer you the head coaching job?
I was, no.
No.
All I had to do was say I wanted it, and I never said I wanted it.
Okay.
Because I didn't want it.
But you had the feeling, or you knew that you could have been the head coach?
I think, yeah. Oh, in my mind, I guess we all think that way, but I just never even thought of staying. Some of the reasons, real quickly.
Yeah.
The culture in the South at that time was pretty ugly relative to cheating.
Okay, sure.
And I mean, Oklahoma State, A&M, all these different.
You mind turning it down just a bit? Thank you. Keep going, Mike.
All these the schools that we know so well. It was just wide open.
Yeah.
SMU, that was during the year where SMU got the death penalty.
Right. Yeah. They had payroll going.
Yeah.
Which is legal now.
And Jim Wacker, the guy that we'd replaced at North Dakota State, he turned himself in after winning the Blue Bonnet Bowl at TCU. He was at TCU when we were at Tulsa. He'd moved up too.
Yeah.
And, so it was just rampant.
Yeah.
And we had a booster that that was trying to get too involved.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to deal with that. I wasn't gonna. And so if I had a chance to get it, I didn't go after it because of that concern over having to change your.
Because a lot of guys probably would have taken that job, just because it's a head coaching opportunity, Division I, top 25 school at the time.
The previous guy previous to us went to Arizona State to Ohio State.
John Cooper. Yeah.
And,
wow.
It's a pass-through job.
Yeah.
Where if you do well, you move up
as a head coach. Do you have any regrets now about not taking it? Sounds like you didn't. You were because it wasn't even much of a decision to you. You wanted to go to Wisconsin and be in the Big Ten.
I'm a Big Ten guy,
That's right.
Midwest guy.
Yeah.
I used to go to games at Memorial Stadium. I, coach for 1 year there as a GA, and there's no question where I wanted to be.
But describe the kind of situation you and the football staff encountered in Wisconsin in terms of how much they prioritized football, and it sounded like there were a lot of roadblocks to a successful football program at the time.
2 years before we got there, the faculty voted against allowing Wisconsin to go to a major bowl game. It was like the Gator Bowl or something when that was like the fifth best bowl. And so from a recruiting standpoint, you know how that's going to affect you. You're not, kids that want to play in bowl games aren't going to come.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. The other thing that was just a lot of things, but unique about it is the first thing when we'd come to the meeting in the morning to create the practice schedule, there would be a list of names, offense players and defense players, and those were a list of players that weren't going to be at practice.
Yeah.
And the reason they weren't going to be at practice is all the tests were taken from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Gosh.
And at that time, no one was practicing in the morning. It just wasn't even thought of. And so I bet in 3 years there, we had our whole defensive unit there for a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday practice probably 5 times.
That's absurd. This is Big Ten football.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And
were you guys constantly kind of pissed off a lot of the time?
Well, we actually didn't know all this when we went into it.
Yeah.
And so we were surprised at the state of it.
Yeah.
And it just, Dave McLean had died 2 years earlier. Mm-hmm. So that was a bad recruiting year. Then a guy by the name of Jim Hillis was interim coach. He struggled, but so they kind of had missed 2 years recruiting. And then we came in, and honestly, we didn't do a great job recruiting. We had a hard time
sounded like it was
keeping
tough.
Wisconsin people there and getting. It was easier to get out-of-state people to some point because the people in Wisconsin knew some of the challenges that were there.
I mean, here you were. I mean, I was looking it up as you were talking about, like, only Florida, before the Penn State game, Miami, 1986, Miami Hurricanes, #1 most of the year. You guys held, only you in Florida held them to like 23 points. Everybody else, I mean, you had a sensational defense in a top 25 program at Tulsa. And now you're in a situation where it sounds like you're rolling a boulder up the hill at Wisconsin, and like what's going? You're a guy who's in his 40s. You've been working the way up the ladder, and like really for the first time in your career, it sounds like things are not going well. So what was that like for you and for Don? I mean, Don was a national champion at North Dakota State a few years before. And it just felt like you had one hand tied behind your back.
Yeah, one thing about coaching, you know that eventually you're going to get fired, or be a part of a staff that gets let go.
Yeah.
I was fortunate I coached 8 different places and only happened to be once,
Yeah.
So I look at it a little bit that way. But I really thought about getting out of coaching. In fact, I didn't look at a coaching job until May, I think it was.
After you guys all got fired?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I just, so then John Gregory, former South Dakota State coach, invited me up to Saskatchewan for their summer camp. And I went up there and spent a month coaching the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. I think it was Rough Riders. And then came back, and then I was at a lake place just hanging out and driving into Fergus Falls to pick up my weekly, I think I got a check, unemployment check.
Okay.
And I ran into a guy by the name of Al Moldy in a grocery store or a bar. He was head coach at Western Michigan. He had been head coach at USF.
So he's just
from Laverne.
So he's just summering at this Otter Tail Lake himself?
Yeah, he had a cabin there.
Unbelievable.
And we had talked. They actually beat us that year. And he and I had talked several times before that game and after the game professionally. And he said, what the heck? Anyway, long story short, he said, why don't you come out there? I'll set you up. We'll get you housing, get you a car, and get you as much money as I can.
And again, just to repeat, at this point, you had no...
Nothing.
It's like when you were backpacking in Europe. You didn't know what you were going to do next, and you weren't quite in any hurry to quite get to it yet.
The good thing is we had 6 months' pay.
Yeah.
And we only had that for one reason. They hired the former AD at Michigan to come in and be a consultant in the search and handling the previous staff. And he said they were going to give us 1 month. And we got 6, so we had
Good.
a little,
Okay.
Anyway, long story, we get there, and then 2 days after we get there, coach left. And then I became full-time there, coached running backs. And then at the end of that season, Wayne was let go, and then I got the head job at South Dakota State.
Yeah, so how did that courtship start there? This was because it was Wayne Hensel was his name?
Yep.
Wayne Hensel. He resigned. They had fallen on tough times, and this was around early December 1990. So you had that decade where it had been 11 years since you had been at SDSU, and during that time you got to experience national championship at NDSU, the Tulsa years and the Wisconsin years. Was this something when Fred Oyen, the athletic director, approached you that you were particularly interested in?
Well, I had known Fred when I was assistant there, and he was like a student assistant in administration, or anyway, and he had got the AD job, and so I called him after Wayne stepped down, and I said, I'm interested. He said, I kind of expected you to call, or thought you might be calling. And so, went out for an interview, and it ended up being between myself and a guy by the name of Dennis Crehan, who became the head coach at USD a couple of years later. And then, so in 1990, we moved to Brookings and stayed for a few years there.
Stayed for a few years. Head coach from 91 to 96, but I don't know if it was as bad as Wisconsin in relative terms to your competition in the Big Ten, but you encountered some frugalness from the athletic department here and there in trying to run a successful North Central Conference program.
The thing they didn't understand at that time was what a great athletic department can do for a university, and football kind of seems to drive a lot of that interest, and along with basketball and women's basketball, and so we right away confronted things that just shocked the heck out of me. This is just crazy. But the first day, I had one of the assistant coaches go and post things all around the dorms and stuff because we didn't have computers there to call a team meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we get to the team meeting and there's no one there. And it turns out that someone was walking behind him from the athletic department, taking down all the signs because the AD thought it was illegal to meet a team with a team in the off season.
It wasn't, was it?
That's how it started. No,
was it? It wasn't illegal.
Well, you can't talk football, but I mean, imagine starting an organization without being able to get your group together and talk about it. So that was the start of it, and they were tight. Facilities were awful. The locker room, same locker room. I had been there 11 years ago, and it was in awful shape. We had no chance to have an indoor facility. We just didn't have what we needed to.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate. We did have some good players, and some guys that played well. I mean, we were the first team in forever that had 6 straight winning seasons.
Right.
And they had really struggled previous to that, and so we accomplished some things. Biggest thing is we changed, in my mind, the mindset of the players, that this is important, and you are going to come to spring ball under Wayne. They could go play tennis or
run track,
all that. Anything to get out of spring ball.
Go to their brothers' state basketball games.
Yeah.
Like Shane Bauman.
Yeah,
Todd Bauman.
It was pretty loose operation. And in the defensive Ansel, he truly just treated the players like his kids. He told me once, just before he died, he said, I wouldn't have traded how I did it. He said, I know I was too close to the kids, but I wouldn't have traded that relationship for the 2 games you won more than I did every year. And it was just a very solid statement. But so it just wasn't, the kids, even though they were good athletes, just weren't doing what it took to.
They were just kind of used to winning 3 or 4 games a year. You wanted to win.
And then we won, and we had some good. We I think in our 3rd year we beat North Dakota State for the first time in 17 years.
Yep.
That year we lost to Montana out there after leading 35-14 at half. Then we beat UND, who went on, and I was a national finalist in the last game of the year. Just kicked them. And so we had good players. We really did, and good kids. I call them kids, but they're good players. And we had 5 guys from our time there that end up in pro football. So that we did have good players.
Yeah, 6 years, you win 6 or 7 games each and every year. Winning record, correct me if I'm wrong, every year, which again they were not used to up there. But all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, the Mike Daly Show. A, you put your foot down. You wanted football in general to be taken more seriously, and B, in your own words in this book, if you want to be a bigger operation, you got to act like a bigger operation. So tell me, how did this whole Mike Daly Show come about? How instrumental do you think that was? And you having a weekly TV show, 10:30 on Sunday night, that you recorded Saturday nights after games, to your success, because it was one of the first things you did out of the chute. And as you mentioned, you produced it. You found the money for it. You found the TV station and the anchor, the host, Gary Weckworth, for it. Why was that so important to you?
Well, it's just what everybody did, that programs that I'd been a part of for the last 10 years. You know, Tulsa, Wisconsin, North Dakota State, who was a team that we had to beat.
Yeah.
And we just needed to become a peer of those. We needed to be seen in the same light. And that was one way to very visually do it. And then the first thing I did actually was go to you guys all over the city and ask
the TV
stations if they would produce the show and run it on their stations. Yeah. And they all turned me down, except Kello showed interest in running it if someone else produced it. And so we hired a group called TV Productions up in Brookings, great people. And they were the people that could produce it. And I hired Weckworth as the mount.
Gary had been a TV sports guy, the Kello TV sports guy, for 8 years in Sioux Falls, so he's very popular. He had just gotten out of doing that. I had an interview like this with him last summer, and he just said he could have done that his whole life, but he wanted a new challenge, and he had been kind of an independent contractor for about a year, and he had done a radio show for once a week. He had a few different jobs. But so I asked him today about you, and he just said that you knew what you wanted, you had a vision, knew what you needed to get the show off the ground, as you've been mentioning, and to this day, Gary says it's still so impressive that you, Mike Daly, hired everyone for the show. You sold it. You negotiated the TV time on Kello, and then you negotiated that time on the cable sports network that reached the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And some people marvel at that. That you're taking all this time and effort. Was it easy? Was it hard?
It was hard, but
was there any part of you that's like, I should be spending more time on this or that?
No,
or
it
this
was
a
obvious
big priority
that you had to do it.
Yeah.
You had to do it, and you just counted on assistants to do things that might make up for time. But I didn't do much with it, very honestly, during the season. It was in the off season where I did the work.
Yeah.
We lucked out. We had a guy by the name of Wayne Rasmussen. You'll recognize that name probably. He was a pro football player from South Dakota State. He was working with Citibank at the time in Sioux Falls, and he was on the board of Norwest Bank. And he took me door to door to the big operations businesses in town to pitch the show.
Okay.
And Norwest took it. And so we got our major sponsor through them. Once we got that, then it all fell into place from the standpoint of getting the money to do it.
You could probably tell other potential sponsors, hey, Norris Bank's sponsoring us. This is a legit thing. And so Gary has told me to ask you, how many times would you have to start and stop segments in the early years when taping the show? And I guess along the same lines, if doing the TV show is harder than coaching.
Well, one thing, I was kind of a perfectionist. So it was a tape show, and then we drove it down to Sioux Falls that night and dropped it off at Killow. But we wanted to do it right, and we were willing to just stay there until we got it right.
Yeah.
If I was mumbling or just saying something stupid, or the lights went out or whatever, we just stopped and started again. We just weren't going to put out. We're going to put out the best possible product as we could.
So there was and you're living in the moment, thinking this has to be a good TV show. You're not thinking I'm the freaking head coach. I got a million things to do. We just had a game. There's recruits in town, but this was like top priority because you knew what it could do. I'm guessing for recruiting, right?
You bet.
Yeah.
And
did you have fun doing
recruiting? It's all recruiting, and also interest from fan interest.
Yeah.
Which again, if people approach me about it nowadays, fans liked it. They like to watch it.
Yeah.
We did fun. We tried to make it fun. We always opened it with someone saying, "Stay tuned for the Mike Daly Show," and then they do something that would come on. And I mean, we had Bill Murray do it.
What?
Yeah, we had Dashel do it. We had, we just got huge names. Kicker, I remember the Vikings guy, whenever they would run into someone famous, they'd ask him to say it.
Yeah.
But Bill Murray was the best one.
Bill, how did you do? So did Gary find Bill Murray somewhere to do this?
Yeah, he was running, I think, a minor league baseball team
St.
up
Paul
in
Saints.
St. Paul.
Yeah. Yep.
And they ran into each other associated with that. But Gary was a huge part of making the show, one that some people would want to watch.
He wanted me to ask you how the ratings were.
Oh, shoot. We controlled the time slot.
I bet you did.
Yeah, who was that? Yeah. Rosie O'Donnell or someone we kicked, I remember. So somebody, Sunday night, 10:35.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And so did you immediately start getting feedback? Like we saw the show, like you could start to feel the wave come in?
We did.
Like you sensed the difference that was making for the program?
Yeah, we did get some real good feedback from it. I mean, obviously we got better at it. I look at some of the early shows and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But as the years went on, I think we had a pretty good product.
Okay.
And
you had recruits from all over the region that said they saw the show?
They would see it because you'd make sure they saw it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it ran between the Jim Wacker show at Minnesota and the Lou Holt show at Notre Dame. We were in the middle of that. So it went boom, 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 half hour,
wow.
on Midwest Sports Channel.
That is something.
And so, yeah, it was good. It was good for the program. And John kept it going for 1 or 2 years. That just wasn't him,
Right.
Priorities different, and totally understood.
It's interesting because I think in his later years, and certainly now in his retirement, he's become pretty good at this now too.
Shoot.
But I can't, I can't have a conversation with you without asking about Adam Vinatieri.
You bet.
Since he was there, I mean, I think the first game as head coach, Adam Vinatieri kicked a game-winning field goal for you guys against UNK.
Yeah,
Kearney.
Yeah,
Nebraska
exactly
Kearney.
right. Well, first of all, just going back, he was an athlete, quote athlete.
Yeah.
In high school, he's a wrestler. He's a good golfer. He played quarterback. So he wasn't just a kicker or punter. And we recruited him. He didn't get recruited by any Division I schools. And it really, from my experience in Division I really believed that the kicking game was really important.
Yeah.
And when he only had 38 scholarship, it was tough to put much money into a kicker or punter. But with him, he kicked and punted. Okay. So we could give him more because he was covering two positions. And so we gave him a big enough scholarship, and it was the biggest, no question, it is the biggest that any kicker in our league had.
Yeah.
And so we got him.
Yeah.
And when we got him, John, we knew that we had a chance of losing him to Army. And Army, not the Army,
football.
Football. Because he was waiting to see if he got the appointment or not. And we discussed it. He said, if I get that, I'm going to go. I said, we'll take the risk. I said, but if you do go, we will take you back if you don't like it. But I might not have that 3/4 of a scholarship. I said, we'll have some, but with you not coming, I got to go find another kicker or punter or whatever it was at that time that we needed. And he understood, and then in the middle of the summer got a call from him and said, you still want me? And I said, sure. And he came back, and then it went from there.
Has Jim Heinitz ever told you the story about him recruiting you, Adam?
Yeah.
He told us last summer, Jim did, about how Adam came in an hour or two late, didn't seem too interested in Augustana, and Jim cut the conversation short. He's just like, I don't think you want to come here. I don't think this. Let's just both go our separate ways. So either he had sights on the Army, or he already knew he wanted to play for you at SDSU or whatnot. But
yeah, I don't know what went on there. All I know is we offered him a scholarship. He came, ended up at our place, and is going in the Hall of Fame in a month.
He did okay.
Well,
he was. Is it true that he wasn't that great of a kicker, or was he at SDSU?
Oh, he was a little up and down.
Yeah.
He was a better punter than kicker.
That's what I've heard.
Statistically, and just, I mean, he just pounded it. You could just hear it. And he was more inconsistent on the kicking game, on the kick stuff, and to the point, and this that I benched him at one time. He'd missed 3 or 4 extra points and field goals in a row, and I benched him and had an audition of the team and see who had kicked before, and 4 or 5 had, and they came and ended up going with a defensive lineman, I think it was, off of Jim Remy's his name, from Laverne.
Defensive lineman.
Yeah, and he square toe.
Yeah.
And he came in, of course, missed the first 3, and then we put Vinny back in, and then
how
he didn't miss many after that. Oh yeah.
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 Okay.
Probably still is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there any part? But you couldn't. You felt like you had no choice. He was struggling enough. You had to.
Just give someone else a chance. Give him a breather. He still punted.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, any competitor like he is doesn't like to not do his deal.
Yeah. So you, after 6 years at the helm, it's several 6 and 7 win seasons, very successful run, and you're still in your late 40s, I think, and you just decided 6 years as a head coach was enough, 26 years as a coach was enough, and why? Because you probably had a good 20 years left in you.
I did. I never wasn't enamored by the profession as much as some people are, and that's not a negative statement about other people. I always liked to fish and hunt and enjoy life and do other stuff. And then when we had our son, and it's some of what I went through as a young kid, not having a dad, he needed a dad. I was raising everybody's kids but my own, and so I just said, I think let's just shut her down and get into something that's a little more sane, something I can spend more time with my family with. Best decision I've ever made. I never look back at it. The fact that people ask me about the administration and that, I always say that, having the administration the way they were and their lack of really interest in getting real good,
raising the money,
doing whatever it took to get to the same level of goals that I had, made my decision easier.
Yeah.
If they are giving us everything and try and give us as much as possible, and I saw that things could get out of the 7-4 to 9-2, it wasn't there after 6 years.
You felt like it had maxed out.
It
you did all you could do.
Yeah. And I had a great booster at this time, and you'll love the name, Dana Dykehouse. Mm-hmm. He was when I was an assistant defensive coordinator in the 70s, he played there. So yep. I was his coach in college, and he immediately became one of my bigger boosters in the region. And people don't know it, but we, in 92 or 93 it was, just before he moved banks, we had developed plans for the indoor facility that went all the way to the legislature or the Board of Regents, whatever it went to. It went to Pierre, and to see if we could get it. And we didn't want, we were going to raise the money, not ask for money. But they ended up putting up the Fishback Fine Arts Center instead. That was the decision that they made.
Yeah.
And that forever set us back.
I'll never think of that the same whenever I drive by it now.
Yeah.
And
that's a great thing, too.
Yeah.
But that's what we, had we got that, then we could show recruits, okay, steps are going on.
So instead you went and got the trailers.
Well, we had to, we did that the first year.
Because you could have auditorium space for meetings. They would say education would prioritize over athletics.
The first meeting we end up finally having, because I couldn't get people together, there may be the second one, we reserved this room, and it's big, only one in the building that's big enough for 100 players. So we get there, and there's about 15 people in there with the exercise physiology teacher. And I said, we've got this. He said, no. He said, if a professor wants a classroom and it's being reserved by a coach, we get it.
Oh,
so we model out and
so were the trailers your idea?
So then we said, okay, that's it. We've got we're not going to do this. So then first year we got one trailer, second year 2 trailers. And they saved us because we could have our meetings when we wanted, no distractions, no people taking it over right there. It actually was perfect. You walk out the door of the locker room and into it. And so it served its purpose. It really smelled bad after the 15th year of John using it. And so that building came at the right time.
So what have you made of? Because you were making this effort way back in the 90s and you did all you could to turn this into a serious program, win some games, be taken seriously, but you didn't get some of the things you wanted, like an indoor practice facility. But eventually it all came. The support came, the money came. The indoor facility came, and of course, under your successor, under John, who was your defensive coordinator, we've seen what South Dakota State football has become. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been living around here the whole time, have you?
Yeah, we moved from Brookings to here. Yeah.
What have you made of all that? That all these things that you wanted to have as a coach came to life. It took a long time, obviously. He had several years like yours until they really got it rolling.
Yeah, the first couple of years, like it happens to a lot of people, they struggled a little bit. But once they found their footing, they obviously have done very well. The key for them, and this was to John's credit too, he was able to continue to develop that relationship with Dana Dykhouse, First Premier, and others, big boosters, did a good job with that. And he pushed, everybody wanted a new stadium. And John said, that doesn't help us win. What helps us win is two things: a facility to recruit on as far as the locker room, training room, meeting room complex, and an indoor facility.
Yeah.
The last thing we need is a new stadium. Now, granted, it's great for the fans and all that, but to win, build it and they will come. Well, if we win, we'll be able to get that, and then it'll, and so the first thing that happened was the Dykhouse Center was put up, and a lot of people put money into that. Sanford, I was working for them at that time. We did, a lot of people did, and Dana obviously, and then the indoor facility again supported by Sanford and Dana's group, Denny Sanford. And I always say Sanford, but Sanford Health and Denny Sanford are two different things. They obviously are connected at the umbilical cord, but they are, the money came from him privately and Sanford Health, not all from Denny or all from him. And I contended, and Kelby kind of went out on a tough deal, but I really contend if Kelby Krabanoff hadn't been the CEO at the time he was, with the influence he had on Denny Sanford and his background in athletics, there wouldn't be very many good programs around here.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they accomplished. I mean, everything took off from high school football. I mean, Sioux Falls high school football wasn't very good. And all of a sudden you start getting facilities and that kind of stuff. The universities all of a sudden were able to put up some facilities that could compete against someone. And without that infusion of funds, I don't think a lot of this would have happened.
What did you do for Sanford once you got out of coaching?
It was great. I worked for Mike Begeman, who you know.
Yeah.
And I was in public relations, and what I did is go to all of the smaller towns around the region and represented Sanford. I put together a council in each one that we would get together once every 3 months and talk about what was happening there, and it was great. It was
yeah.
a great job.
So did you play somewhat of a part in trying to help raise the funds that you did?
Well,
kind of as a spokesman for both Sanford and SDSU?
I was in a good position to hook people up, I remember the meeting with Justin Sell and Kevin Lampe was the first discussion that they had. We met at Perkins up north of town, and Kevin represented Sanford, and Justin obviously represented South Dakota State, and that was the first time the two had met. And then the big thing there that eventually happened that made it all go was the fact that we were able to get the sports, the orthopedics, sports medicine contract. Once that was in place, then it all starts to make sense as far as financial support. And
well, yeah. So it's no, certainly it's no coincidence how it slowly but surely SDSU, because of all this, becomes a powerhouse in the FCS. I remember 2018 and John Stiegelmeier mentioning, he gets 5 or 6 minutes of airtime on ESPN. He rides in on the moped, and they asked him how this turned in from a quote-unquote, they used the words mediocre D2 program, which I'm sure John took issue with and you took issue with. You guys did as good as you could with the resources you had. Into a national powerhouse in Division I, and he was quite honest about it. He said it took a special group of several people, including donors. Money has to be a part of this as well. And then you fast forward to 2022 in Frisco, Texas, and I think there's a picture or two in the book of you and John on the field. You were there.
That was cool.
What did it mean? What did it mean to you to watch them win that national championship?
It just was so special, And the neat thing about John, there's a lot of neat things about John, but he took care of former people associated with the program. And probably the last 5 or 6 years, for example, he'd ask me to come up in fall camp and sit in on all the different position coach meetings. And then he and I would go to lunch and debrief on how it went, what could be doing better, blah, blah, blah. And I did that for about 5 years. And he always would get me away games. He'd get me a sideline pass. And he took care of me all the time. So he really kept me close to the program, as he did a lot of other people too, and that made a big impact on me.
Do you mind sharing? Did he say anything to you once the clock had struck 0, or at any time around that time to let you know that you may have played a big part in this as well?
He's given me way too much credit.
Okay.
Then and continuing, he just. He doesn't mind sharing it, and I think he overstates the significance we played.
Okay.
But I appreciate it.
I skipped one step. How much of a hand did you have in making sure he was your successor?
When the job opened up, I told Fred that if you're going to stay in-house, John's the guy.
Yeah.
And, getting a job as an assistant isn't that easy. I mean, you've got a track record, It's like winning the second term of being president. And so, if we stay in, I think he's your guy. But I know you'll look all around and, it's not like we were conference championships year, where it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, right.
But he did the right thing. He checked different people, and I think everybody would agree. Fred made the right decision and hired the right guy.
Hey, we're about to land the plane. I did ask John about you today, and he said he just made sure to know that you were very, very detailed. Great football mind. John said you taught most of his football knowledge. Most of his football knowledge, because there's the late 70s when he first became a coach, and you took him under your wing, and then of course the 90s he was your DC. You were all business in the office, and after recruiting, you would host a recruiting party where you would give out mock awards. He said that was fun. I got to see a different side of you.
We tried to have a little fun. I was serious, maybe too serious sometimes.
Yeah.
It was very intense, and whether that is a style of coaching everybody likes or not, that's what worked for me. You got to be what you are, and John had to be what he was, and that's okay, But yeah, we had a little fun. We went hunting out at his place. Kyle, that was fun. He just a whole bunch of land, and we'd go out pheasant hunting after the season was over. And he had about 10 nephews and nieces, and they'd walk the fields, and then our coaching staff would just sit at the end and post, and then shoot them up. And that's Trent Bulkey, the guy at the GM guy
from the Niners,
from the Niners in Jacksonville. He and I would road hunt after practice on Friday on every home game. We would
okay.
We would. And Trent Keith still says, he says, with about 20 minutes left in practice, I'd look over and you were checking your watch. So you have to have some fun, but it's a serious job.
But you never looked back, and and your son was how old when you stepped down from SDSU?
He was here. That was 96. He was born in 88 in Madison, so 8 years old.
Okay, and so you basically got to. You wanted to see your son grow up, and
and it worked because he's the greatest kid in the world. He's not a kid anymore.
He's the CEO of a hospital, right?
He's been a CEO of a hospital now. He's 35. He's been a CEO of a hospital for 12 years already.
Okay.
Out in Oregon, out in Montana, and then now in Tomah, Wisconsin.
And I do want you to tell a story of how a Minnesota Vikings game saved his life. You're threading everything through it.
Yeah. We had a great relationship with this Trent Baalke, GM of 49ers, And they were playing the Vikings, and we had gone out to San Francisco to see games, and we had a good relationship going. And anyway, they were playing the Vikings up in Minneapolis, and Derek our son had started getting sick at the end of being at home in the summer, before going back to Iowa, where he was getting his master's degree in healthcare administration. And so we met actually at Albert Lee, and we know he had been getting tests and stuff, but we were shocked to see what he looked like. And we got to Minneapolis, and we always, and in this time, we had dinner with Jed York, the owner, Trent, a bunch of the big wigs, you know. And about halfway through it, Derek said, I got to go to bed. And he loved that stuff. He just ate it up. So long story short, after the game, I remember calling or texting Trent, saying, we can't say goodbye. We got to go. We're kidnapping Derek, and we're taking him back to Sioux Falls. And took him back. It took 5 days for them to find out what it was. He had developed a strep infection that had gone to his heart, and it had eaten away his aortic valve. And they were this was a Saturday, they figured it out, and on Saturday, and the cardiologist that first looked at him said, yeah, we'll set up surgery for Monday. The surgeon came in and said, call in the troops, we're going. And did it 5 hours later, 6 hours later, after a short night's sleep. They did it about 6 in the morning. And he went through it. Unfortunately, the infection had gone to his eyes, gone to other organs, and his liver and kidney were kind of shutting down, and it was pretty bleak at one time. But the neat thing, and it's when you have friends, I called Trent and some other people I knew in sports, and I called John and others, and Trent had about 5 of their best players, Alex Smith, Vernon Brown, their tight end, just the great players, Willis, their best ones, and they made a tape and said, things that supported them, and hang in there and get her done. And Eric listened to that, and then one time John came up. It was a Sunday afternoon when it was at his worst, and he sat with us for 2 hours and brought a football and prayed, and he got through it. And we had made a statement to Trent that if he got through it, if you get into the playoffs and Derek gets through this, we're coming. And so he got
Super
through
Bowl.
it. No, this is the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
And then, I'm sorry. And so we get through it. They get into the playoffs. We fly out there for the first game. They end up going to the Super Bowl, and they took us there.
To the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
Wow.
Spent the entire time in the team hotel, in their rooms, where the players would come in and relax with their families.
Yeah.
We had escorts every place we went, security. It was just unbelievable.
Very cool.
So, now he's doing great.
Good.
And that's how it works.
You've had an all right life. It's been okay for you.
Well, it's been some ups and downs, but just everybody has them, and you get through the downs and enjoy the ups, and it's been a pretty good run.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing about it with us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it.
Mike Daly. I failed to mention this. This is a good way to close. I was going to open with it. In the words of John Stiegelmeier, Mike Daly changed the face of South Dakota State football. Not too bad.
Nope.
Congratulations.
I'll take that.
Job well done. For video producer Cordell Wright and our friends here at the Gateway Lounge, I'm John Gaskins. Happy hour and cheers.
You need anything else, John?
No, I think I'm good, Greg. I think I'm going to tap out.
All right. Have a good night.